Sandy. Get down there, will you? Tell us if there's any sumps. You're like Stuart Little. We get you a little car. Go and find the interesting things underground, Sandy. And make sure you come back and we'll have a lovely bit of cheese for you.
So I was listening to that Flight of Fancy and you went cheese, and I thought, well, I would come back for cheese. The deepest point of the cave is called the Terminal Sump. Now,
Dear.
and nobody knows how deep it is.
I've got one of those. Only my doctor knows where it is.
Well, I know a Ukrainian diver who could go and have a look. There's a man called Gennady Samokhin, and he holds the record for the deepest dive so far, 52 metres down to the Terminal Sump. Why would you do that?
I do not want to go any further down here. Sandy, go further. Where is Sandy in her tiny car?
The thing I love about this cave is the deepest terrestrial animal ever found on Earth lives there. It's a hexapod, 3 millimetres long, just a tiny little thing. It's called a Putomorus autobalagnensis, and it lives at nearly 2,000 metres down. Do you not think that's astonishing that life is carrying on? It's not camping, it's living there full time.
And like the Alan went, are you looking at the same picture? I didn't really think,
You think it looks ugly, Alice, but you wait till you've seen Sandy doing dressage on one. Pops a little ribbon on it. Those long
Trot
things
on,
for me.
Spikey.
They're too heavy for me.
It does look like it's
Oh,
down.
why have I got these? They're too heavy.
They put them back.
Yes. Just needs a bit of product.
Or a scrunchie.
Yes. Camping is a pastime. First documentary.
Early Victorian.
Early Victorians, it's British, so yes. Yeah, it is. The Victorians absolutely loved it. There was a great boating craze, so it was all down the Thames, and some boats even converted into floating tents. The person you have to blame is a British tailor called Thomas Hiram Holding. He is regarded as the father of lightweight camping. As a boy in 1853, he and his family went across the United States by pioneer wagon across the prairies, and he absolutely loved it. Has inflicted on the rest of us for all eternity that we have to
somebody
go
that
camping.
wears a pussy bow is not genuinely camping.
No.
Like, I feel like he's got an inflatable mattress in there, he's got heaters, he's got a hot water bottle.
Well, he
A little meter, yeah.
He rather hilariously produced the Camper's Handbook, and under meal suggestions, he provides recipes for blancmange and lobster salad.
Oh, just come out.
I remember getting a vegetarian cookbook in the 80s and had a crisp sandwich in it.
It's not much of a tent, is it?
He has a road there on dry land. It's quite impressive.
Tide's out. You say that's not much of a tent. He sold it to Eel just after this photograph was taken.
Camping these days can get seriously intense. Okay, moving on. From the deepest quest on Earth to the highest, what do Everest summiters come down with?
I was offered the chance to walk to base camp,
Right.
and I did 1 day's training on Hampstead Heath and declined.
They say Hampstead Heath harder, so
You have to talk to the dog.
all the dog walkers.
But there's only a fortnight in May and a fortnight in October when you can even go to the top. And the rest of the year it's 400-mile-an-hour winds and minus 60. Why would anyone go up there?
I thought you were going to say it's all school groups.
No,
And they're
it's not.
inundated.
If you do get permission to go, you'd have to queue, and people get really bad tempered. There are many fights that break out as people are waiting. What are they coming down with?
A Yeti.
A black eye by the sounds of it, if everyone's like...
Oh, a fridge magnet, something like that.
One of those pens with something that's like a climber.
There's a Sherpa in a bra.
His dad again. Sir Edmund. Wow. You can see his Hillary.
So the Tibetans don't call it Everest, they call it Chumalonga. They employ, in fact, 30 porters. Their sole job is to carry poo down the mountain. Yes, to special pits further down the mountain.
You're not allowed to leave your poo up there.
Well, no, in fact, if you do climb up now, the Nepalese government, they require you to bring down 18 pounds of rubbish and that includes other people's poo, or you will lose your $4,000 deposit. Just over £26,000 of human excrement is dumped at base camp.
Will the poo ever overtake?
We can do this. The comic relief.
But the Nepalese porters who carry it all down, they're astonishing. They use something called a numlo. It's a sling that goes across the forehead, and on average, the male porters can carry 90% of their body weight. And the female porters as well, they can carry 66%. There's one porter who can carry twice his own body weight. Henry went back to the Himalayas lots of times after climbing Everest. He led an expedition. He led an expedition to look for a long snowman. He concluded that it didn't exist. No. But the Nepalese government has Yeti hunting rules. You have to pay for a permit, is the first thing. You have to photograph or capture it, you're not allowed to kill it, and you have to turn it over or turn over the photographs of any sightings whatsoever.
I like the idea that Edmund Hillary's there at the press conference, and this is what we're looking for. And there's a bunch of Sherpas in front of him looking up. Oh, you mean Keith? He said, and you see, no hat. This is how you can tell. The Yeti.
Or the centre parting, do you think they saw lots of ones with little side parties? Like, that's not the one I'm looking for.
If we cannot find the Yeti, we will settle for the lead singer of Herman's Hermits.
From mountains to cliffs, how did the first ever cliffhanger ending conclude?
With somebody falling off the cliff? Or somebody not falling off the cliff?
Where do we think it comes from, the idea of using a cliffhanger in a story?
Well, from serial storytelling. Was it Dickens?
This is a famous British author who first came up with this. Tessa D'Urberville's obscure...
Thomas Hardy, didn't
It is
he?
Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy wrote a novel in 1873 called A Pair of Blue Eyes, and one of the characters, Henry Knight, is left dangling perilously off the edge of the cliff, and his love interest, Elfrida, she realises that he's in some terrible trouble, and this is rather shocking and daring at the time. She goes and takes off all her underwear in the bush and makes it into a rope and saves his life.
Makes her bush into a rope.
It's dark, she's walking along, and she suddenly got a huge erection in her front, and it turns out to be Stonehenge. The metaphorical cliffhanger, so used as a literary device, is much, much older. So the Arabian 1001 Nights is in the story from the 8th century of Sherazade, and she tells a story every night to everyone to be killed, and she always ends it. The king wants to find out what happens next.
Isn't it one in the Bible?
What is the story in
The
that?
cliffhanger with Mary when she tells Joseph that he's not the father of the kid. They're like, dun 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 dun.
Yes!
It's not like that.
No!
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
That's a cliffhanger, that, isn't it?
Yeah, but I like the doom, but that's what I think.
That's so right. It is better with it.
It's much better.
Previously in the Bible.
Phil, you mentioned cereals. What did you mean?
Cocoa
cereal?
Pops. In newspapers and
Okay, but it also
radio.
there were serial films in the early 20th century that would be shown once a week, usually on a Saturday morning, and then they would continue on from the last. And episodes tended to have some kind of suspenseful scene that would then resolve the following week. The most successful of these probably 1914's The Perils of Pauline. That does have a literal cliffhanger in it in episode 6, with Pauline, the protagonist, clinging halfway down a cliff. But there's an effect called the Zeigarnik effect, and cliffhangers take advantage of this. People can remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than they can remember completed ones. So there was a psychologist working in 1927, Bluma Zeigarnik. She was the very first Russian woman ever to attend university, and she studied this phenomenon after her professor noticed that a waiter had better recollections of unpaid orders than paid ones. And she found that people will remember an interrupted task about 90% better than something that is uninterrupted. In a cliffhanger context, you remember the story better, and you're more invested in it if the scene is left unresolved. Now, how did Britain's greatest national treasure get here?
Taxi.